What if Renly Baratheon marched quickly on King's Landing? Let's explore the depths of it in the video. Renly Baratheon sits upon his flowery seat in Highgarden and tries to suppress a smile as his messenger relays a report of recent actions in the Riverlands. The man describes the action in the Whispering Woods and the camps, where Robb completely outmaneuvered the army of Jaime Lannister and routed them. Even better, he captured the Kingslayer himself and now blocks Tywin's retreat east. Though the old lion remains alive, he is now trapped in Harrenhal, unable to provide any support to the Westerlands and unable to receive any reinforcements as he's surrounded by Northmen and Riverlords.
Who knew the Stark boy had such talent for warfare? That, or we've simply been fearing a kitten because its shadow looked like a lion.
Around him, his bannermen all laugh at the thought. Things were going well for them as well. With the recent marriage pact with the Tyrells, the Reach committed its army to their cause, which now numbers some 80,000 men. If he were to march out now, he would have more soldiers than the rest of the warring kings combined. Yet, while the lords and ladies all laugh and toast to his success, one person does not join in the celebration. Olenna Tyrell, who stares at her new grandson and hobbles over. Renly greets her by raising his glass.
You do not seem pleased, grandmother. Come, share a drink with me.
I will not. The last thing I want is to encourage you, or you'll end up like your older brother. Though perhaps you are showing signs of that already. You have all these men, and yet here you sit, eating your grandfather's food and drinking their wine while you talk of conquests.
You do not approve of my strategy. King's Landing is like a fortress, and if any army is defending it, any less than a dragon will not be able to capture it.
Well, there is no army to protect it. The young wolf has seen to that. All that stands between you is a wall manned by frightened peasants and up-jumped thugs. That, and the leagues of territory you refuse to march across.
You were too hard on the boy. So long as we are here, we prevent any food from passing through the Rose Road. The city will starve, and by the time we arrive, it will be ripe for surrender.
We can starve them by the walls. The difference is there they might be willing to open the gates for us. Go there now, and they will see you as the demon of the Trident come again. But from here, you are an absentee king playing a war with tourneys and feasts, just like Robert, as he was in the end. They might turn to the others for their king, such as Stannis.
The mention of their middle brother causes a damper on Renly's mood. His expression darkens, and a flash of anger crosses his face as he regards the Queen of Thorns. Despite that, she meets his gaze unafraid, and this leaves Renly thinking. For the first time, he begins considering his position more seriously. As the feast goes on, he continues to laugh and jests with his lords, but his mind is now thinking of other things, about conquests. By the next morning, he has now decided to march out and strike at King's Landing, deciding that Lady Olenna's words are true. He makes no secret about this plan, sending word ahead to the Stormlands to have them gather more support along the way. Renly also sends words to the Riverlands about his impending march, so that they may also prepare for his arrival. He takes most of his forces with him, though a portion of men numbering around 8,000 ride north towards Harrenhal. They go there not to reinforce the Riverlords, but to check the Lannister movements. This was Olenna's suggestion, as they might not be officially allied with them. Their presence would be welcomed, as it offers another hostile army to challenge the Lannisters. It would also allow them to claim that they helped Robb Stark, even indirectly, in any ensuing negotiations. When houses Smallwood and Rhaegar get word of this, they welcome their arrival. The lords announce they have no quarrel with them and permit free passage, so long as they obey all laws. Even with this reduced force, Renly still has more than enough men to strike at King's Landing. The only problem is that they lack any ships, as House Redwyne has remained neutral due to Lord Paxter's sons being held hostage in the capital. That means they must take the city by storm, or deception. Unfortunately, taking it by storm proves to be more difficult than anticipated. As they arrive and set up the siege, Lannister men rush out to meet them and try to disrupt their siege weapons. Because they know that Renly has no navy, Tyrion focuses his forces on the walls. Fighting is fierce, as the Hound personally commands these attacks and slaughters many men-at-arms and knights foolish enough to try to challenge him. To make things worse, a wildfire is launched from the city walls from pots. When a siege tower is rolled forward, they focus all their fire upon it. Though it had been covered with hide and other materials to prevent it from catching fire, wildfire burns hotter than the average flame. As soon as several pots hit it, the whole tower begins to erupt in flames. Despite that, several ladders manage to reach the wall, where they can clash on even terms. Yet even here, the fighting is brutal, as the Lannisters barely cling to any of their position until nightfall, where the attackers are forced to withdraw. Word is sent to Tywin about these attacks, urging him to ride back with all haste. He quickly abandons Harrenhal and moves to confront Renly. When he does, Those 8,000 men under the command of Sir Guyard Morrigan race after him. While their force is relatively small, it is still a large enough army that Tywin cannot ignore it. The Rainbow Guard strikes at Tywin's rear, nipping at the heels and battering his rear guard. This forces Tywin to turn back and confront the king and drive him off. Each clash further delays the Lord of Castle Rock from reinforcing the city. This allows Renly to begin taking up a new strategy to take the city. It wasn't so long ago that he was the master of law, and many of his people still know him. That includes some of the city watch. Among them is one Sir Humphrey Waters, whom Renly had promoted. The captain soon comes up with a plan. The next day, Sir Robert Royce and Bryce Caron launch an attack on the western walls, where Sir Humphrey is stationed. They bring with them 12,000 men and create a great clangor, which prompts the captain to ask for reinforcements. Thinking that this is where the main attack will come from, Tyrion dispatches troops from the rest of the wall to confront them. Yet all of this was a ploy by Sir Humphrey to weaken the defenses of these walls and allow the rest of the army to attack. In particular, two places become the biggest battles. There is the River Gate, where Brienne the Blue leads an attack, and along the southern walls where Loras scales a ladder to try and storm the wall. Though these attacks are happening in different parts of the city, a competition of sorts develops, as both members of the Rainbow Guard compete for Renly's favor. However, in the end, it is Loras who manages to break the walls first. With a morning star in hand, he reaches the top of the battlements and clears a path for more men to follow after. The thin line of gold cloaks breaks and allows him to open the Lion's Gate. After that, the whole battle falls into chaos as the city watch breaks. Most of them simply throw down their weapons and surrender, while the rest seek shelter in the Red Keep. Renly does try to make some effort to maintain discipline inside with his knights punishing looters and murderers, but he understands that this cannot fully be controlled and doesn't seriously try to stop them. Seeing the battle lost, Cersei and Tyrion attempt to escape on a ship, but are intercepted and captured by Sir Humphrey, who presents them to Renly. In a matter of hours, the entire city is taken, and the lion banners of the Lannisters in the Red Keep are pulled down, replaced with a new sigil, a crowned stag of gold on a field of green. The lords of the Reach, Stormlands, and several Crownlander houses all gather to proclaim Renly the new Lord of the Seven Kingdoms as he sits atop the Iron Throne, a smile playing on his face. As bold as this claim might be, it's still contested, as though they are crippled from this loss, the Lannisters are still a threat, and there are still Robb and Stannis to contend with. Renly immediately sends letters to Robb, offering him the chance to negotiate, while he gathers his army and moves to deal with Tywin. By now, the Old Lion has reached the foothills nearby, a few days' march from the capital. He had intended to help relieve the city, but after hearing of its fall, instead takes defensive positions atop the hill and prepares himself for the inevitable clash. Renly decides to deal with this personally, and rides out with some 35 men, while the other half of his army remains with Randyll Tarly to hold the capital. He meets up with Sir Guyard's forces, who give him a report of what's happened.
Your Grace, we've bottled up the Westermen atop these hills. However, they have managed to begin fortifying it. Capturing it will not be easy.
Not to worry about that. He is a cornered lion, nothing more. Even Lord Tywin realizes that he cannot possibly hope to win here. He rides out onto the foothill, where he raises a white banner and offers to let Tywin surrender. He will allow his family to remain rulers of Castle Rock, and Tywin will be allowed to take the black. Tywin listens to all of this and scoffs.
You have won one battle, and now you think that makes you a conqueror, Lord Renly? I have faced worse than you. And if you do not believe that, ask the Rhaenys and Tarbacks when you see them in the next world.
Is that all you can boast about? A rebellion you put down some 30 years ago? I have 10 times the men they did. Your recent performances tells me otherwise. Having your son captured by a boy and trapped here by me.
Trapped, but not captured, Lord Renly. If you wish to rule, you'd best learn the difference. Here are my terms. A royal pardon for me, a marriage alliance between my children and whichever heir's named, and I shall help you defeat Lord Stark and your brother.
Yes, because you've done a fantastic job defeating Lord Stark. Truth be told, I am being rather cruel, letting you live out your years as your star fades. Oh, to grow old. But if you insist on this course of action, I suppose you will not suffer that fate. As the negotiations break down, both sides prepare for war. However, as the Baratheon armies line up and prepare to advance, they can see the preparations Tywin has made to confront them. 2 low stone walls ring the hill, while a hastily made wooden palisade crowns the top, where most of the Lannisters have positioned themselves. Around them, stake traps and other fortifications have been placed. Despite that, Renly orders a charge. It starts with a storm of arrows as his elite longbowmen rain down missiles upon the Lannister army. However, this initial attack does not appear as effective as Renly had hoped. With the Lannisters uphill, not all arrows find their mark. If anything, they manage to best the Baratheons in ensuing archery duels. Seeing his initial attempt to soften them up failing, Renly orders a charge across a large swath of territory. But this is where the Lannister defenses come into effect. Soldiers crouch behind the first wall, thrusting spears and swinging axes at the Baratheon men-at-arms to force them back. Along the march, men stumble into ditches, fall into stake traps, or simply stumble across the ground that Tywin has initially made uneven to slow their ascent. All the while, archers continue to pour fire on them. By the time Renly's first wave reaches the wall, hundreds have fallen, and here they must contend with the Lannisters waiting for them. The fighting is fierce, as men try to seize the wall, but the uneven terrain and defenders prevent them from making march progress. For the first time, Renly begins to see that his attack is not going as well as he had hoped, and he begins calling for reinforcements to be sent up. Yet, even these men do not have much luck, as the only thing that truly saves them is their weight of numbers, which allows them to eventually seize the first wall, but that is only halfway up the hill. At this rate, Renly realizes he may lose thousands. Reluctantly, he has the defenses of the first wall torn down and orders a retreat to change his strategy. In the coming days, he has the hills surrounded, but does not attack, instead sending word to King's Landing for support. In a week, they arrive with what Renly has been asking for, trebuchets and some of the leftover wildfire. Soon they begin bombarding the hills with them, aiming to cut them off from each other, allowing Renly to take them one by one. He fires some behind the second stone wall, cutting off the men's line of retreat. So when he orders another attack, the Lannister men begin to break as a result, as without hope of further reinforcements, they begin to surrender. This leaves Tywin cut off, and as the wildfire dissipates, Renly focuses his entire army on him. The ensuing battle is as they slowly cut their way towards the crest of the hill. Some men manage to break free, and others surrender. Tywin is not among them. He tries to rally his men, but is eventually cut down as the army breaks around them. Kevan manages to survive and organize the surrender. In exchange, Renly names him the new Lord of the Rock while he returns to the capital. As he focused on his campaign here, word has arrived from Robb Stark, offering to negotiate. Given Renly's success in the recent Ironborn attack, the King of the North is in a difficult situation. Truth be told, he has no quarrel with Renly and decides it is better to just cut his losses. Thankfully, Renly proves to be a magnanimous king and offers Robb generous terms. He must renounce his crown privately and bend the knee publicly, though Renly will allow him to retain the title of King in the North, albeit as a show title rather than a king in practice. Seeing as he lacks a fleet to sail home, Robb agrees. The river folk and Northmen are all pardoned and begin their march home. Paxter Redwyn is placed in charge of punishing the Ironborn, given how he was unable to contribute to the attack on King's Landing. The Lord of the Arbor is eager to prove himself. However, that is the easy part. There remains one more claimant, Stannis. The speed of Renly's attack took the middle of Baratheon off guard, but it also offered an opportunity, as the Stormlands are virtually undefended, since most of the lords and their knights have marched north to King's Landing. So he sets sail into the Stormlands and begins war there, capturing castles and towns to gather men and supplies. At first, they aren't too worried, as this should only put him as a minor nuisance. Yet, just as Renly returns, he receives word that Stannis has captured Storm's End. Some survivors come in reporting what happened and explain that in the dead of night, Ser Courtenay Penrose mysteriously fell to his death from the battlements. No one knows exactly what happened, but most believe it is an accident. With that, his second-in-command, Lord Meadows, quickly surrendered. However, another man, Lord Gilbert Faring, recognizes that this was no accident. Along with a few others, he whispers about the possibility that dark magic was involved. He swears that the air was unusually cold that night, and that he swore he saw the shadows move while making his rounds on the wall. That is why he sent the ravens out. Most importantly, the loss of Storm's End is something Renly cannot ignore, and has to confront Stannis. So reluctantly, Renly decides to ride out once again, accompanied by Loras, Randall, and Brienne. Together, they lead nearly 25,000 men to confront Storm's End. As Stannis had recently captured the castle, he can't rely on its garrison, and being bottled up in a siege would only take him back to square one, leaving him unable to gather reinforcements. Instead, he rides out and forces Renly to chase him as he gathers as many men as he can. With his campaign, he managed to leave fresh troops, and now has close to 9,000 men to confront Renly. They meet along the Rainwood, but rather than face them in open battle, Stannis suddenly retreats into a siege of defiles and valleys where Renly cannot use his larger numbers. The Rainwood closes around them like a cage of dripping green. Above them, the slopes are thick with moss and jagged stone. Somewhere in those heights, Stannis' men wait. Renly rides at the head of his host. The first boulders come suddenly, great stones sent hurtling down. They crash through ranks of footmen, scattering shields and bodies alike. Men panic and break formation. Horsemen gallop through the ranks, trampling anyone too slow to move aside. Arrows follow as the Dragonstone men take advantage of the chaos. Renly raises his stag helm and shouts for the knights to press on, while Loras and Brienne close ranks about them. They lift their shields and raise them over him. However, they know this isn't the only ambush to come. So Randall detaches a contingent of light infantry. Archers and crossbow men move to scramble up the side paths, their goal to drive the enemy from their advantageous position. Bit by bit, Baratheon ambushers are forced back, losing their advantage. Each time the enemy resistance falters, Renly presses harder, drawing Stannis' attention onto himself and allowing Randall to finish the task, forcing his elder brother to commit more men to the choke points. Though anxious, the knights and men-at-arms press forward. Brienne takes command of the rearguard, fighting off ambushers while the cavalry moves to the front and back to have more room to maneuver. The infantry forms defensive formations in the center. Hours grind past, the battle shifting through valley after valley. At first, the ambush slackens as they lose ground and the army moves more easily. Stannis, drawn even deeper into the defiles, and prepares to meet them in battle, a proper fight where Renly has the advantage. Renly's horn sounds, and the green tide surges forward. Randall's men hold the high ground, and now the full weight of Renly's host crashes down upon Stannis' headquarters. Loras leads the vanguard, silver armor flashing as he carves a path straight for the banner of the fiery heart. Brienne stays with Renly, sword drawn, her eyes never leaving the shadowed corners of the battlefield. She remembers the whispers of strange cold, of a shadow that kills. And then it comes. Out of the mist coils a shape darker than night. A thing born of sorcery, its edges flickering like living smoke, and it slides toward Renly with silent malice.
You're great.
She throws her weight against him and sends him to the ground as its shadowy blade passes over her. Her sword meets it with a clang that rings like shattering glass. Steel splinters in her hands. The shadow surges closer, searching for Renly. In desperation, Brienne seizes a clay pot from a supply cart, the wildfire meant for breaking fortifications. With a cry, she hurls it. The pot smashes upon the shadow's chest, and green fire erupts in a blinding roar. The thing screeches, writhing as emerald flames consume it. When the light fades, nothing remains but scorched earth. Brienne falls to her knees, panting, her hands blistered from the heat, but Renly stands over her and helps her to her feet.
I owe you my life, Lady Brienne.
Around them, the battle breaks. With the sorcery undone, now it is only a contest of steel, and here Stannis is at a disadvantage. His men falter and break, while Renly's knights storm the command tent. Stannis Baratheon, grim to the last, is cut down. Only Davos Seaworth is spared, dragged before Renly with soot upon his face and grief in his eyes. At Renly's word, he and a handful of survivors are granted mercy, allowing to depart with honor rather than face slaughter. They negotiate a surrender, and Shireen is allowed to remain Lady of Dragonstone. However, she will serve as a hostage in the capital until she comes of age. That night, the camp celebrates victory. Yet it is Brienne who is called before the king, in full view of the lords and banners. Renly takes his sword once born from his brother and presses it into her hands. Its steel gleams in the torchlight, alive with fire.
Lightbringer, it was called.
My brother carried it into battle. An ironic name for someone who relies on shadows. But he shall not need it now. It goes for my protector, who banished the dark and saved her king. Brienne bows her head, humbled, and tears up as she kneels and takes the blade. The men cheer in the echoing din of triumph. With that, the War of the Five Kings draws to a close, and Renly can begin his reign as king. He begins making big changes in court, starting with getting rid of the existing small council. Pycelle and Varys are both executed, while Littlefinger is stripped of all titles in court and sent back to his seat. When asked by Sir Loras about why he did not kill him, or even send him to the wall, Renly responds with a laugh.
Have you seen his lands in the fingers? Sending him to the Night's Watch would be a mercy. No, let him live out his days on his quiet little rock.
The next thing he does is remove the Kingsguard as an institution. Most of its members were killed in the fall of King's Landing, and the survivors are not particularly talented. The one exception is Sir Balon Swan, who is allowed to return home. In its place, Renly places his new Rainbow Guard. While they appear functionally identical, the difference lies in the relaxation of certain rules, such as those governing marriage and relationships with others. A little quirk Renly made to ensure that he and Loras are not breaking any laws. His next command is to name Edric Storm his heir, and to legitimize him until a child is born to him and Marjorie and betrothed to one of Mace's nieces. This was done under the command of Olenna, who is well aware of Renly's preferences. This way, regardless of who becomes heir, House Tyrell will continue to remain part of the royal family. Paxter Redwyn is ordered to occupy the Iron Islands, with Balin and Victarion being executed and a garrison being stationed on Pike. The Vale is soon brought into the fold as Renly now stands as the undisputed king. At last, Renly begins to rest easy and begins ruling. His rule presents a return to the status quo in some ways. Like his brother, Renly is open-handed with his wealth and offers public games and spectacles that help keep the people occupied. However, he is a bit more moderate about it, as he recognizes the immense debt the crown has to the Iron Bank. To help him manage things, he names Lady Olenna as Master of Coin. The shrewd matriarch of House Tyrell immediately begins cutting the worst of this debt, by strong-arming Kevan Lannister to forgive the debt of the Iron Throne. This gives Renly more breathing room to spend. Much of the first few years of his rule were spent rebuilding. Both the Stormlands and Riverlands were badly mauled by the war, so Renly wastes no time in repairing this land. A small army of workers arrive to rebuild the ruined villages. Septs are rebuilt and help appease the faith, while places like Storm's End and Harrenhal host tournaments and festivals that distract the people from their woes. Food flows from the Reach into the cities to keep populations fed. Meanwhile, Shireen becomes a member of the court, serving as one of Marjorie's handmaidens. There, she finds herself an outcast both because of her appearance and her father's rebellion. Though they never say anything openly, she can hear the whispers behind her back. The one person who does take notice of her is Olenna Tyrell, who takes Shireen in as a protege, sensing that Shireen could be a valuable ally to have, given that she is the last surviving legitimately born Baratheon. She is given lessons in ruling and serving court life. The one sticking point remains Dorne, which had remained out of the war and seemingly was uninterested in whoever became king. Even after Renly is crowned, they are still reluctant to support him and do not appear publicly, simply sending a letter instead.
So the Dornish snake wishes to remain in their desert. Very well, far be it from me to try and rouse them.
If you think that they are simply planning on going back to sleep after everything that has come to them, you are mistaken, Your Grace. My people have quarreled with Dorne for centuries, and let me tell you this, their blood always boils hot, and they have long memories. Ignore them, and they will bite you when you least suspect it.
So what do you suggest? That I invade Dorne and force them to submit after they've already written to me, recognizing me as king?
No, but perhaps some economic sanctions. Dorne's trade is fragile compared to the rest of the Seven Kingdoms. Reduce trade to Plankitar, and I assure you they will be more pliable to negotiation.
If you were worried about getting bitten, a move like that is surely to get a response. Thank you for your advice, but I think I shall listen to my Lord Hand on this matter and ignore them.
If you refer to my son, you would be wise to remember he is an oaf.
In the end, though, Renly does not do anything about Dorne. In fact, he does not do much of anything at all. With the realm at peace and everything back to normal, Renly is happy to enjoy that time and avoid doing anything that might jeopardize it. As the Seven Kingdoms are rebuilt, their construction teams return home, and the small folk are left to go back and toil in their fields. No new laws are passed to protect them, and no new laws are made to address the underlying problems. When lords of large market towns approach the king and request independent charters to grow their settlements, Renly refuses and cites that it is not his decision to make. Shireen is there as well and shakes her head.
Wouldn't it be better to let them grow their towns, so that we can have more cities and develop the countryside?
You seem to be taking an interest in politics. Yes, and they might start getting ideas about why they have to obey the laws at all. More importantly, it might make the great houses resentful of why I'm letting the most powerful vassals do as they wish. They might even call me a tyrant.
But my father used to say that our cities are the livelihood of our trade, and we should support them.
Your father would cause more trouble for his vain quest for justice, and they say I am the one who likes causing drama.
But still, surely if they've been stuck like that for ages.
You say that as if being in this position is a bad thing. Our lands are at peace. Our coffers overflow with gold, and the realm is safe. They should be happy with that outcome. Now, maybe one day you'll understand that.
But what Renly might call peace, others call complacency. And in that laxity, corruption begins to fester yet again. Though Littlefinger might be essentially exiled, he still retains his influence. Even though Lord Whitehead now serves as Master of Coin, many merchants recall how they prospered under Littlefinger and still count him as an ally. Because of that, he begins to direct them towards destabilizing the realm yet again. The Red Keep's gardens are warm with summer light, but Olenna Tyrell's voice is sharp as thorns. She sits beneath a trellis, Shireen Baratheon beside her with a slate in her lap.
Mark this well, child. Kings are rarely eternal. They die from swords, poison, folly, or boredom. Your Uncle Renly has chosen complacency. That makes you my insurance.
But I am no heir. Uncle Renly named Edric Stone.
Edric is a sweet boy, but baseborn. There is no doubt you are of Baratheon blood by birth. That gives you weight, whether you want it or not. Learn to carry it.
Marjorie joins them, radiant in green silk, her laughter chasing the gloom. She takes Shireen's hand and smiles. Of all the ladies in court, she was the only one who offered Shireen kindness, and the two have gotten close, especially as she appreciates the girl's help as a handmaiden.
And you will not be alone. Edric and I also have a grandmother teaching us.
To ensure at least one of the next generation is not a complete oaf.
For the first time, Shireen allows herself to smile. She does not see Olenna's calculating gaze, measuring her as if she were a pawn and queen both. At court, the Tyrells sink roots deeper than ivy. Mace lumbers his hand, Paxton Redwyn rules the seas, Loras commands the Rainbow Guard, and Olenna herself counts the coin. To crown and council alike, the Reach has replaced the Rock, and that the court is that of golden flowers rather than crowned stag. Yet, this is no idle gossip. Many other regions notice this growing trend and change under the Tyrell rule. Many Stormlanders had wished to see their houses rise to prominence with a Baratheon king, but they find themselves increasingly sidelined and appear more like junior partners. The Dornish are ignored altogether, as the Reach has little interest in working with them. Trade ships are limited, and cross-border trade remains limited. The Westermen are little better, as the actions of Tywin Lannister keep a wedge between them, and others privately fume that the Reach had committed treason, too, by backing Renly and not Stannis. They only owe their rise to the support of Renly and the fact that he is their relative by marriage. While many once cheered the beauty of Marjorie and the bravery of Sir Loras, others now begin to mutter about Mace's grasping nature and Olenna's stinginess. It is the space Littlefinger slips into. From his seat in the Fingers, he moves merchants like pieces on a chessboard. Many still owe loyalty to him and trust his judgment. He begins to send letters, murmuring risks of starvation as the Tyrells provide all the realm's grain. Should anyone ever speak out against them, they can cut off the rest of the Seven Kingdoms, with Dorne, the Westerlands, and the Stormlands now turning against them. This is only a matter of time. As a result, they begin to hoard grain, refuse to sell grain to trading towns, and raise prices for goods. Bread grows scarce in King's Landing, and hungry mobs brawl in the streets, while Renly attempts to distract them with public games. This only results in further anger. He hopes this tried and true strategy would work its magic yet again, and for a moment it seems to. Renly spares no expense, gathering the finest knights across the Seven Kingdoms and offering some lavish rewards for their participation. Gifts are also offered to those who attend. And when the day of the event comes, people gather in droves, eager for some relief from their days of toiling. As the bell rings above and the first jousts begin, there is genuine excitement amongst the small folk population. But things change when the Tyrell contingent arrives. The Reachmen arrive in a swirl of green and gold. Sir Loras appears in gilded gold armor, Mace pudgy and well-fed, and Marjorie smiling serenely as she waves at the crowd. All of this is meant to be a show of strength, to show how united House Tyrell is, but it simply serves to anger the crowd. To them, they see the Tyrells as oblivious to the suffering of the people. They stand above the crowd, unconcerned with their own plight. Rather than being appeased, the people are incensed, and a shout begins to take over. Bread, bread, bread. The first riots broke out during one of Renly's games. No one pays attention to the joust, leaving the knights looking around in confusion as the stands overflow with people and begin to push the stands and rush forward. They move to the gallery where the Tyrells are. Sir Humphrey tries to push the crowd back, gathering a line of gold cloaks to push them back. Yet the crowds are not pacified. The small folk are too furious that bread costs more than a knight's wages. Soldiers beat them back, but the stink of discontent lingers. Soon, cracks begin to form as the royal family and court are evacuated. Shireen watches the city burn in miniature from the balcony. The court is having an emergency meeting to try and figure out what is going on and how to put down the riots. With the crowds in such a fury, some of the sparrows take this opportunity to rile up the population.
We must deploy the gold cloaks immediately. Tell the knights who are participating in this tourney to join the fight. I will personally pledge 100 gold dragons to every knight who offers his sword.
Half the city already wants our heads, my boy. And now you want to turn the other half to hate you as well.
I will not be cowed by these small folk who wish to take their own anger upon us.
Father, we cannot rely on brute strength now. To punish the small folk at this time only confirms their distrust. It shows we do not understand their concerns for us.
Indeed. We must understand what is causing this anger. Something does not smell right. They are clamoring for bread and cursing rising prices.
Not just that. Some claim it is the Tyrells doing in order to fatten their purses. That is a lie. If that is truly what I wanted, I would not be sending it to feed the population at a loss. I would be sending it across the narrow sea to feed the free cities.
Calm yourself, Lord Mace. No one here questions your intentions. It is the perception of the people that requires fixing. Could another grain dole help smooth things over? Perhaps a large donation to show the Tyrells and the Crown understand the suffering of the people.
I do not think so. I think right now it is best if we simply lie low.
We cannot simply sit here and do nothing. Not while they curse our names and call for our heads.
Is there a possibility that someone else might be causing these shortages?
This isn't a chance, my lady. I've smuggled onions through blockades, seen merchants hold for profit. This is no poor harvest. Shortages like this usually occur during war. The realm is at peace. If this is the case, then it must be someone of immense influence.
So it isn't an outside force. It is someone. And if someone is choking it, they want us to blame the wrong hands.
Clever girl. It must be someone of immense influence. Sir Davos, I leave you to investigate this matter.
There is no need for that. Only one person can influence the markets in such a way. Lord Baelish.
That money changer. We should have taken his head when we seized the capital.
A raven was sent to the Vale with offers that Lord Littlefinger be handed over to them for questioning. Yet when it returns, it comes with a cold reply. Lady Lysa will not surrender her old companion, not unless there is proof of wrongdoing. The council chamber falls silence. The king's command has been openly defied, and for the first time, worse, it comes from the weakest great house. Seeing this, the rest of the great houses begin sharpening their knives, and none are as sharp as that of House Martell, who has long grown to distrust the Baratheons. Even after the War of the Five Kings, they never accepted Renly, and his efforts to isolate them into supporting him only alienated them further. They soon get their chance when Daenerys Targaryen conquers Slaver's Bay. The Dornish immediately set their sights on allying with them, promising her their spears if they help quash this pretender. Daenerys responds to this with a pact, promising to sail to the Seven Kingdoms if they provide her with a safe landing zone for her army. Within months, the banners of House Martell snap in the Dornish wind as Daenerys Targaryen steps onto the sands of Westeros for the first time. Her dragons scream above, smoke trailing in their mouths. The Martells are the first to kneel, and their bannermen soon join them. However, other discontented houses flock to her. The Vale sends knights eager to undo their isolation, and Lady Lysa promises to help them when the time is right. The Ironborn rise in bloody rebellion. The garrisons on their island are slaughtered, and force the Red Winds to sail their fleet there in order to secure their tenuous hold. As the first squadron sets sail, they come under attack by dragonfire. Drogon flies overhead and unleashes flames upon them. Waters churn, and ships unlucky enough to get caught in this firestorm are destroyed. This forces them to retreat back to the harbor, leaving the Reachmen and the Iron Islands trapped and destroyed one by one. Soon, Greyjoy longships swarm Pike's shores and set sail for Westerlands. Meanwhile, the Valemen march through the mountain passes, aiming to strike into the Riverlands and link up with Daenerys' forces, who rush through the Reach. But Renly will not allow the crown to slip from his fingers. For all his complacency and peace, war makes him come alive. Block the Eerie suns before they spill into the Trident. Lady Brienne, Sir Brendan Tully, hold the passes. Hold them as if the realm itself depended upon it. Because it does. Sir Gaillard and Sir Bryce march south and rally the Stormlands. Sir Robb, Sir Plum, and Sir Emmon ride with me. And someone send word to the Starks. Tell Lord Robb it is time to make good on their oath. Brienne kneels, eyes bright with fire, while the Blackfish gives only a grim nod. Together they ride north with steel at their backs. Renly rides south and west, summoning banners from the Stormlands and the Reach. His charisma rallies hesitant lords. His laughter breaks their fear. As he rides out, the Riverlords respond, and it seems like the realm will rally to his side once again. When the first Vale Knights reach the lower slopes of the eastern road, they are met with the spears of Rivermen and Stormlander longbowmen. They clash along the slopes and are repelled with their noses bloodied and their realization that this might not be an easy victory. When the Ironborn begin an assault in Seaguard, Renly and his Rainbow Guard personally ride out and run them down. Their attacks in the Westerlands is more successful as Kevin wisely declares neutrality. Seeing this, Daenerys and the Dornish swap tactics, and rather than continue north to the Riverlands, they turn west and attack the Reach's interior. In their hurry to regroup with the Valemen, they had bypassed most of the Reach, but now they turn their fire upon it. Villages burn in the wake, crops shrivel in dragonfire, and terrified peasants flee toward Highgarden. Dothraki and sellswords ride unchecked, while Unsullied systematically clear out villages, taking riches and plundering the countryside, which is turned to ash by dragonfire. Oberyn reasons that they care more about their own lands than the king's crown, and they are correct. The Reachmen immediately pull back to defend their homes. This allows the Targaryens to ambush their hosts and strike them piecemeal. Ironborn raids also force Oldtown and the Arbor to keep their forces ready in case of an invasion, while Kevin's possible involvement leaves houses Rowan, Oakhart, and Graceford from sending any men at all for fear of an invasion. Soon, the breadbasket of the realm looks ready to be turned into a wasteland as Unsullied boots trample their carefully tended fields. The few armies that are there struggle to hold them back and are destroyed. In New Barrow, they try to lock their gates for a siege, but the dragons destroy their siege weapons and allow the Unsullied to scale their walls. A group of Kaimen form a defensive square and beat back the Dothraki charge, only to be consumed by dragonfire. And a relief army heading to Oldtown is ambushed and destroyed. Olenna Tyrell watches the flames spread across her gardens from the safety of King's Landing and begins to see the cost of war mounting. Mace repeatedly tries to rally his men and gather troops in Highgarden, but she doubts he has the skill to defeat them.
Our king burns with energy, but energy cannot feed soldiers, nor can it charm quench dragonfire. Our coffers dwindle, our fields die, our fleets are bottled up. At what point, my sweet, do we cut our losses?
Renly is our king, and my husband. I cannot possibly abandon him now. The realm will look to us and realize we truly are turncoats.
Though their relationship was one of politics, she has grown fond of her husband, and she can see the love her brother bears for him. This causes Olenna to soften slightly.
Peace. A negotiated peace. Perhaps even exile. The Black. A quiet island far from dragons.
Marjorie considers the possibility, and it does sound logical, and even she cannot deny the destruction this war has caused. As she watches the ruins of her realm, she feels her heart tighten and wonders if this is the best way to move forward. However, one person who doesn't agree with her assessment is Shireen, who refuses to accept this offer when they present it to her. She looks at them, stunned and horrified.
You would have me betray my own uncle. All you would do is confirm the realm's fears that House Tyrell only serves its own purpose.
Do not be so naive, child. If you look outside and saw the lands you grew up in were turned to ash, you would do the same thing.
And you would betray your king, the man your granddaughter married. What do you have to say about this, Marjorie?
I don't like it, but I also do not wish to see my husband burned. At least here, he shall be able to live.
And did you tell him that? Renly would be too proud to accept that offer. He is like my father in that way. He will not accept defeat. Perhaps instead of thinking of ways to abandon him, we can think of ways to win this war.
They have dragons, dear. How do we defeat that?
Daenerys has 3 times as many dragons, but we have 3 times the wits. All right then, but I hope with your boldness you have something we can work with.
As a matter of fact, I do. Sir Davos has reported that his old friend Salador San has captured some of the merchants believed to be raising their prices. They all have the same story. They are fearful of rising prices and were stocked up. As it happens, all of them were also leaving the Vale.
So that means we have proof of Littlefinger's treachery. At the very least, it might cause some Vale Lords to reconsider. With that, we can move troops to focus on the dragons.
We could have 100,000 men and it won't make a difference. But I can see how strongly the two of you feel about this. Very well.
Salador is instructed to get a confession out of these men as to who tipped them off, something he gladly obliges for a handsome reward and a commissioning in the royal fleet. With that, they at last have evidence to lob against Littlefinger. While Lysa continues to deny the validity of these claims, her lords are a different story. Many no longer see the need to ride out for a traitor and threaten to pull their forces back, forcing Lady Arryn to at least concede and allow them to withdraw. With that, the Riverlanders and Stormlanders can at last move south and aid the Reach. Along the way, they are joined by Robb Stark, who rides with an army of 12,000 men as they advance deeper into the southern region. They arrive and find the green fields of the Reach are blackened with fire. Villages lie in ruin, their orchards smoking, their rivers choked with ash. Yet, where others despair, Renly rides tirelessly among his men, even as his mind thinks of a new strategy. He recalls his campaigns against Stannis and Tywin, where they nearly crushed his forces, and yet here he stands. By this time, he does not trust sheer numbers. He spends nights reviewing the battles in Tywin's hills and Stannis' defiles. He scatters his armies into smaller hosts, swift, sharp, and rooted in their own soil. Stormlanders harass the flanks, Riverlords strike supply trains, Reachmen melt into the hedgerows, all to bleed Daenerys' army, which is unfamiliar with the territory. At sea, Salladhor Saan earns his keep. His cell sails raid Slaver's Bay, torching ships and plundering coasts, still restless with banditry. He allies with local chiefs, who begin raiding the countryside outside the major cities, paying them back for the destruction of the Seven Kingdoms. Ravens fly thick with news of chaos in Meereen and Astapor, where Daenerys is absent, has left wounds unhealed. Though she conquered them, her rule is not yet rock solid, and there are fears that the Masters might try to retake power. She cannot ignore it forever, and that pressure begins to get to her. Yet on the battlefield, the dragons remain unconquered. Rhaegal's fire melts armor, Viserion scatters men like leaves, and Drogon himself is a shadow of death on black wings. Time and again, smaller hosts are burned, lines shattered, knights left as charred husks upon the fields. Even Renly cannot ignore it, and so they switch tactics again. This time, a smaller team sneaks into Cider Hall after it is captured, and where Daenerys makes her camp. Some of the guards allow Loras, Brienne of Tarth, and Robb inside.
It isn't honorable, but honor doesn't win wars against dragons. We break the beast, and we break her.
Brienne hefts a bow of pale wood. Its arrows are made of weirwood, rare and sacred, gifted by the Starks. She says nothing, only nods. Under the cover of darkness, they creep into the courtyard where the dragons are. Tents ripple in the night breeze, soldiers sleeping in uneasy dreams. The dragons lie apart, tethered by chains heavy enough for elephants, though no chain can truly bind fire made of flesh. Drogon sleeps with wings half spread, embers glowing faintly in his breath. Brienne draws. The string creaks. The arrow flies into its neck. Drogon shrieks. Fire erupts into the night, scorching tents, scattering men in panic. Robb looses a second shaft, striking the great beast in the shoulder. Loras drives his spear into a wing joint, forcing Drogon to the ground. The dragon thrashes, tail lashing like a whip before tearing free into the sky, blood raining from his wounds. The camp is in chaos. Daenerys emerges, silver hair streaming, screaming her dragon's name. But the damage is done. Drogon lives, yet he is wounded. Meanwhile, soldiers rush at them. However, Brienne is ready, watching their flanks as she cuts through men with Lightbringer in a hand. The glowing sword frightens the enemy warriors and allows them to slip past. At dawn, Renly leads his army to battle. He knows the ground, knows the game. He carefully selects uneven ground so the Dothraki and Unsullied cannot use their fighting styles to full effect. A line of light infantry screens their forces, raining arrows and crossbow bolts upon the advancing army, but they are quick to retreat once the dragons arrive. Drogon falters in the sky, burning through enemy soldiers, too slow alongside his siblings. But he is not the unstoppable behemoth he thinks he is. Arrows fire back in response, while the infantry clashes along the rocky grounds. Heavier weapons like scorpions fire upon the dragons. While Viserion and Rhaegal had no problem avoiding these strikes, Drogon is slowed and takes a bolt to the shoulder and tumbles into the air. With a final roar, the black dragon crashes into the fields of the Reach, thrashing on the ground. The sight of the dragon failing reinvigorates the men. A cavalry charge is organized, with Brienne and Renly on the right and Loras on the left. Brienne personally serves as her king's shield, Lightbringer serving as a beacon for the attacking forces to follow. Robb takes command of the infantry and rallies them. For the first time, the discipline of the Unsullied is overmatched, while Daenerys watches the chaos around them from Rhaegal's back. She watches her dragon struggle to rise while her armies fall, and then she closes her eyes and signals for a withdrawal. By day's end, she receives reports on the casualties and warnings of chaos in her domains, and at last sues for peace. Negotiations are harsh. Daenerys sues for peace. Terms are hammered out, and though they have won, they realize that if Daenerys attacks again, there is no guarantee they can beat her a second time. So the conditions Renly gives are generous. He will allow Daenerys to remarry Edric Baratheon and unite their houses, effectively breaking the Tyrell dominance. At first, Mace is furious at this betrayal, yet Renly sternly reminds him that the choice is between accepting this deal or facing destruction. The rest of the realm sees this, Renly at last standing up to the Tyrells and rally around him. Daenerys sees this as a fair deal and accepts, offering Mace to marry into the houses in Slaver's Bay to establish stronger ties between the Seven Kingdoms and the greater influence there as compensation. This seems to be enough for Mace, and Daenerys returns home. Meanwhile, Renly works to begin reorganizing the court and reducing Reach influence in it so that other kingdoms may get greater representation. That's our theory. Westeros is a land filled with exciting stories and possibilities, and we love exploring them. If you want to accompany us on this journey across the Seven Kingdoms and beyond, then please like, share, and subscribe to our channel.